Hi everyone, this is Charles and Sybil with Love Day Dare number 33.
Hey, we're back after some serious technical difficulties, but we haven't forgotten, and we're going to get this thing done. We're so glad to be back with you. And today's Love Dare is love, completes each other.
And our verse for today, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Ecclesiastes 4:11.
I will agree with that.
This day talks about how God creates marriage by taking a man and a woman and uniting them as one. And although you can love, and it can be an act that you can do by yourself, that when you get married, it takes two to complete the love and to make that circle.
It really does. And once you come into that type of oneness, when you're dating, you're still two people together. You're not necessarily acting as one. You sort of have that feeling, but deep down you know that at any time we can divide. But once you cross the threshold of that marriage bond and you do that ceremony and you take those vows, then that idea of oneness comes together. That's where you have to be careful to remember that we are now joined together as one.
And in the book, we're actually on page 161, it talks about how everything about us as husband and wife completes each other.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies were made for each other. Our natures and temperaments provide balance. Mm-hmm. Our oneness can produce children. Our togetherness and our working together and teamwork can best raise them into healthy and to maturity. Where one is weak, the other is strong. So all of those things where the two of us can balance each other out, basically complete each other.
Well, you see, hey, we were truly made to go together. In every way, God has fashioned us in such a way we're to go together. One of the scriptures it says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is no other to lift him or her up. And you know, now I'm on Omega. And there's something, hey, I'm lifted as we climb. That means that as I'm climbing, I'm also lifting. But if I fall, you've got me, you can catch me.
Right.
And that way we're never completely out of balance. We almost act as a counterweight that allows us to balance out the relationship.
Wow, counterweight, that is so awesome. But because we do have these differences that allow us to complete each other, sometimes that can cause great conflict.
Yes. And
they say here that if you're better at cooking, then perhaps the other one is better at cleaning dishes, and vice versa. When we learn to understand, when we come to understand that God created us how we are, and that if we respect our differences, then we'll receive a blessing from God.
And when you begin to lose focus on your weaknesses because you see that God has put you together with somebody who covers that, their strengths, it allows you all to move forward more progressively. It's like I say, it's much like any professional team. Everybody doesn't deal with, or they aren't even built for every position on the team. When people realize what their position is, then the team can go forward as a unit. And that's what I believe happens in a marriage. Once you come together realizing that you all have strengths and weaknesses that complement each other, you can move forward as a unit.
And one thing that they say here in the book that I thought was quite interesting, it says that when we learn to accept the distinctions in our mate, then we can bypass criticism and go straight to helping and appreciating one another. So basically, get over your differences, understand that they're there, and if you work them together, then the two of you can build something even greater than you can have apart from each other. Mm-hmm. And so instead of complaining about it, then embrace him. Say, okay, he's like that for a reason. Mm-hmm. God gave him to me.
Absolutely. and you know, it really gets to be interesting sometimes, especially where you're weak is the place where you're supposed to be strong normatically in that gender role.
Right.
Like if you're the male and you're weak in finances and your wife is strong in finances, you know, that may mess with the gender role a little bit. Or if you're the woman and the man seems to be a bit more nurturing in some situations, that may be a little attack on what we may see as our gender role. But when you come together and understand that we operate as a unit, I'm glad that she does things better than me. It's not about my gender role. My love has allowed me to put down those things that would come and act as a wedge because of pride, because we can again move together faster than we can move separated and split and wedged apart.
In the book, they also talk about, they used Pontius Pilate and his wife as an example, how she told him, hey, don't mess with that guy. It's something about him. Just wash your hands or the whole
that righteous fellow alone.
Yeah. And that story is in Matthew 27, by the way. But she obviously has some sort of discernment. And Pontius Pilate, he could either listen or not.
Well, you got to admit now, if you're all of that, you wouldn't need anybody else.
That's right.
God has imbued, I think that's the right
word. Good vocabulary word.
Imbued. That's right. God has given your spouse things that you do not have. He has given your spouse abilities and gifts that you do not have, because you would need everything. And trying to carry everything is too much of a load. If you've ever tried to move anything, you try to move your house by yourself, trying to carry that couch by yourself is too much of a load. You've got to have some help. And then not only do you get the couch in the house, you'll get in there without tearing up the house, without tearing up the couch, and without tearing up your back.
Tell us about how the effectiveness of your marriage is dependent on both of you working together. And this is something that, we even talk to couples about when we coach them. We ask them, have you made decisions? Have you talked about your finances, your retirement planning? What if your mom gets sick? Can she come move in with you? And so when we discuss things and we see where we are, then it is easier for us to come to some consensus, and no one has to be just totally upset or taken aback by a decision that has to be made.
Well, our relationship doesn't decline into wandering generalities. And oftentimes it's those wandering generalities that begin to erode and just kill a relationship, because in generalities there's no completeness. Here it talks about, it says, God made wives to complete their husbands, and he gives them insight that in many cases, is kept from the man. That means, man, she knows something you don't know. I don't care what you think, you don't know it.
Okay. I like this phrase. It says, love realizes that God has put you together on purpose. And though you may wind up disagreeing with their spouse's perspectives, you should still give their views respect and strong consideration. This honors God's design for your relationship and guards the oneness that he intends.
The oneness honors God. That's mighty powerful.
And today's dare says, recognize that your spouse is integral to your future success. Let them know today that you desire to include them in your upcoming decisions and that you need their perspective and counsel. If you have ignored their input in the past, admit your oversight and ask them to forgive you.
And together, y'all can make great things happen. Well, that's it for Love Day, dare number 33. 34 tomorrow is what, baby?
Love celebrates godliness.
We're celebrating, and hallelujah to that. Hey, you've been with us on StrikingConversations.com. Be sure to join us on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, and Striking Conversations. Have a great one.